Mario, thanks so much for being with us. Can you tell us about some of the projects that might be viewed as in the national interest in northern Manitoba?
Certainly can, and it's a pleasure to be here, first of all. I think we've all heard in recent weeks the Prime Minister's plans for nation-building projects. And I think the University of Manitoba, and Manitoba in particular as a province, are well situated because of our past relationships that we've built together with Indigenous communities, with industry, with government partners to really build sustained partnerships that we think will serve us well to solve some problems of substance, both for Indigenous peoples, but also for non-Indigenous peoples.
Can you tell us about those projects?
Certainly, I think one of our major projects is providing accessibility to the Arctic. And we've been on this for several years now, with special emphasis on connectivity, bringing peoples together to ensure safety of trappers and hunters on the ice, for example, and to ask the question, how can we contribute further to economic development and economic reconciliation with Indigenous peoples? So we work closely with the Dene and Cree in the Churchill area and with the Inuit peoples in the Western Hudson Bay.
Now, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has been taking some heat recently about support for bigger energy projects. So what's your sense of support among First Nations for projects that you're working on and have mentioned?
Well, I think the key is to do this with full consultation and complete sensitivity for the biosphere, right? So two very important things. And that comes back to our sustained partnerships, our deep relationships. One has to build trust. So nothing without full consent and full participation. So in fact, University of Manitoba researchers are the supporting cast, providing information and research on, for example, the best routes, minimum damage to the biosphere, right? Assessing the impact of oil spills, designing systems that will minimize oil spills. And if there are oil spills, how does one mitigate that? So new methods of cleanup. So I think one has to be cognizant of the fact that these could harm the environment, these high energy projects. But if done intelligently and with sensitivity and full consultation, one can arrive at a common solution. I should point out that this does not refer only to fossil fuels. In the future, we will be transporting other forms of energy. For example, green ammonia, where one can liquefy that as a carrier of hydrogen and transport it to various centers, various countries. And so the Port of Churchill then becomes a very important asset when one wants to do that. So the key is to be very aware of the possible harm that can be done. We enlist our conservation biologists, our anthropologists, and consistent with our strategic research plan, where one of the themes is human rights and social justice. So we would never want to go against that ideology.
Just really quickly here, Mario, obviously the federal government seems to be in a rush here, passing legislation to get things moving quickly. How quickly could some of these projects get off the ground?
Well, I think it comes back to answer the question, I have to talk about climate change, right? With the global warming, the Hudson Bay is navigable now for about 5.5 months of the year. Our researchers have modeled the future impacts of climate change, and they predict that by 2100 we'll have 7 to 9 months of navigable water. So that combined with icebreakers, for example, more resistant ships, really opens up the shipping season. So I don't want to raise expectations falsely, but a great deal of research has to be done in the feasibility of the port. One may have to do a little bit more dredging. One may have to relocate certain components, but we're certainly well on track to study those effects and to make reasonable predictions going forward. We don't want to rush this. We have to make sure that we have, for example, a contiguous path for open water vessels that will also minimize harm to the biosphere. Right? So I think all those considerations may slow things down a little bit, but we have tremendous teams ready to work and in partnership with our Indigenous colleagues.
Mario, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you enlightening us on some of the work that's underway.
My pleasure. Please call on me anytime.